Hey folks, it's Brother Steve. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Victory Bible class of the Greenwood Bible Baptist Church. We meet every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock at the Greenwood Bible Baptist Church, 1461 Sheik Road in Greenwood, Indiana. If you're ever in the Indianapolis area and would like to visit, we'd love to have you come and visit our class. Now, we generally take prayer requests and have prayer time just before class, so we're doing that now. If you give us a few minutes to finish that up, class will get started. If you do have a prayer request, certainly leave it in the comments below. We'll read that and pray for you, any needs that you might have. So, grab your Bible, get ready for class. Just a few more minutes as we finish up prayer, and then class will start. Uh, Tyrant side, and we're going to talk about uh, Tower Town. All right, Matthew chapter 15. I hope you're getting something from this. This has been truly a blessing for me to do these lessons. By the way, uh, praise the Lord, I finished the book. It's got 22 chapters, 7 addendums, and it's about 400 pages. So, Lord willing, we're going to have it. I'm going to have it formatted, and we're going to take it to print. Hopefully, by the first of the year, I've got several people who are going to proof it for me. But it has been a long process. If you remember, we taught the Book of Revelation back during COVID, so it's been 4 or 5 years ago. And so started the book then. I rewrote the first chapter maybe 12 times. But finally, God gave me some time, and I've been just hammering it out and finally finished it. It's done. I don't even want to read it. I'm just tired of it, but it's done. And so I'm going to hopefully get that in print. There's a long process that goes into getting that done. I'm not exactly sure how it's done. I got it all written down. So the next step, y'all pray for that. Hopefully before the first of the year, I'd like to get it proofed, edited, and then the next step is to get it formatted for print and then to have it print. And there's processes to do that. It's actually a lot easier than it used to be back in the old days. So y'all pray for that. I'm excited about it. It's gonna be awesome. You're gonna like it. So The book of Revelation. It's called A Layman's Guide to Revelation. And it's the first of a series. Okay, Lord willing, I'm going to write another book on the book of Ezekiel, and then another book on the book of Daniel, and then another book on the book of Isaiah, and then another book on the book of Jeremiah. My goal is to do all the prophetical books, and then we'll see if I'd like to do a book on all of these lessons. So if you have opportunity to go back and listen to the book of Revelation, I'm going to delete all of those videos because I'm going to start making new videos that are going to basically promote the book. So we're going to sell the book. Sell the book. I need y'all all to buy 1,000 copies. No, just anyway. So you pray for that. All right, Matthew chapter 15. Keep right. And you just bought a house, so you're out. Amen. All right, here we go. Matthew chapter 15. Go to the end of the chapter there. The end. Matthew chapter 15. We were there last week where we talked about Tyre and Sidon. After that, he goes to Caesarea Philippi. So we've already talked about Caesarea Philippi. And then there is what, let me give you the kind of the context of this. You need to understand the Bible in its context. And this particular city or chapter or stop along Jesus' pathway is significant because the Bible only talks about him going there one time. Okay. You got the feeding of the 4,000. Then you got his trip to Magdala. That's the tower town. We'll talk about why it's called Magdala and Tower Town. And then right after that, and the only teachings that are mentioned in the town of Magdala is the teachings about the leaven of the Pharisees. This is important because make sure I spelt that right. I don't know. We'll see. Somebody will tell me. So this is important because of what Magdala represents. What do we know about Magdala from the Bible? Mary. Everybody who knows anything about Magdala only knows about its most famous inhabitant, right? Mary Magdalene or Mary from Magdala. Okay, so you're in chapter 15. Look at verse 39. Or look at verse 38 so you can kind of know the context of it. And they did eat. They that did eat were 4,000 men beside women and children. Now, this is the feeding of the 4,000, not to be confused with the feeding of the 5,000. That was before. This is a separate incident where he fed 4,000 men. And then in verse 39, and he sent away the multitude and took ship and came into the coasts of Magdala. Now, turn to Mark chapter 8. Mark chapter 8 in verse 9. This is a parallel passage. So if you're reading the Gospels, you come to these parallel passages. Sometimes it'll give you a little more information in a different verse. Verse 9, Mark chapter 8 says, and they that had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away. Same story, right? Look at the next verse. And straightway he entered into a ship with his disciples and came into the parts of Dalmanutha. Well, what in the world is Dalmanutha? That's another name for Magdala. Dalmanutha is kind of like the region. Okay, Dalmanutha is the region. Magdala is the town or the city. Where's my button clicker thingy? Right here. Okay, so that's where we are. Let me give you a kind of a picture of where it is on the map. All right, so you remember Capernaum right up here in the flat of this elbow right here. Then down and around 6 miles away is the town of Magdala. About 4 miles, 3.5, 4 miles further south is the city of Tiberias. Okay, and this is called the Sea of Tiberias also. It's also called the Sea of Gennesaret, but it's also called the Sea of Galilee. Lots of different names. So Magdala, Dalmanutha, and it's also called Migdal. In the Old Testament, it's called Migdal. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's when you read through these things. That's why it's a good thing to read the whole Bible. Amen. You get all the information. So Magdala, Dalmanutha,
and Migdal are the three names, and then the Romans had a different name for it. We'll see that in just a little bit. Let's go a little bit down our path here. These are all the places we've studied. These will all be different chapters in the book. So we're going to write a book. It's going to be called The Gospel of Israel, and it's going to be about all of these places. And we'll use a lot of these lessons in the book, but each one of these will be chapters in the book. And then last week we talked about Tyre and Sidon and the Syrophoenician woman. We talked about how she was ignored, criticized, rejected, insulted, and blessed. Then we talked about hard truths. She had to face the hard truth that she wasn't worthy of God's blessing and wasn't worthy of Jesus healing, but she came to the understanding that we must come to, that sometimes there's hard truths, but we still trust God. Sovereignty of God, justice of divine judgment, deity of Jesus Christ, the reality of hell, sacrifice of discipleship, the sinfulness of sin, the impeccability of the Bible. All right, and truth, Lord, the hardest truths of God are often the very truths that heal us. The Syrophoenician woman teaches us that the right response, God is never to argue, is never to argue with God with truth, but to bow before it and live. Okay, next button. There we go. It's good to see Brother Ray here this morning. How you doing, Brother Ray?
Very good.
Good to see you. All right, so we did 1539, Mark chapter 8. And then, so here's the context, the feeding of the 4,000 and the doctrine of the leaven of the Pharisees. This is important because there was a synagogue in Magdala that was a very elaborate and ornate synagogue. And it was discovered, nobody knew where Magdala was until 2009. That's how recent these discoveries are. It was started to be excavated, and I'll show you pictures of that. They found a synagogue there that has these mosaic floors and these tapestry mosaics on the walls or on the stone columns. And they believe that it was a very rich area, very rich town, actually larger than Capernaum, almost twice as large as Capernaum, very large city. It's still on the Via Maris, just like Capernaum was. Remember we talked about the Via Maris that runs down through here, that connects Egypt to Damascus, Syria, and then all the way into Europe. It goes all the way north. So that international highway, so to speak, runs through Magdala and then up to Capernaum. Capernaum was the place where they would have the large bazaars and the big flea markets there. Magdala was famous for what? Fish. That's exactly right. There was a giant fish market there. The excavations revealed a massive harbor system with piers, and they even excavated some of the docks that were there. They have these massive stone ringlets where people would tie their boats to, like you would see at a typical boat dock today. They've also discovered these massive stone washes where they would take the fish out and lay them out to dry them out in the sun. And one of the names that they called Magdala was the city of the salted fish. Okay, it was real important because on this Via Maris, that was the international highway. That was the international superhighway. If you wanted to go anywhere in the world, you'd go out here to the, Interstate 69, get on it, go south or north, okay, and you can go anywhere in the world. And if you marketed something, you wanted to be close to that road, especially if you could market it to the world. The Sea of Galilee, tilapia, was one of the most sought after delicacies from the land of Israel. People loved that fish. And so they had this massive market where they would salt the fish so that it would be preserved because fish doesn't last long. So they would salt it down. And they had this elaborate system of how they would brine the fish, pack the fish, and ship the fish all over the Roman Empire. It's very meticulous, very amazing if you think about it. But it was the home of the fish processing plant. Okay, so it's not probably a place where you would want to live. Okay, I would understand if somebody wanted to live 6 miles away, okay, in Capernaum. But it was a very thriving city, also called Migdal. This is the name Magdala Nanaya, which means tower of fish. The word Migdal and the word Magdala means tower. Now, the excavations have not revealed the tower. So there's a lot of speculation as to what happened to the tower. We know there was a tower there because the name of the town actually became uh, based on that landmark. But the archaeologists have not found the tower, but what they have found is fortified walls that were reinforced. Now, the reason for that, I'll tell you, I'll explain that a little bit later. But understand that this town had a wall around it, and then they reinforced that wall with other stones, and it was done very quickly and haphazardly, they say. Some people believe, the archaeologists believe, that they actually dismantled the tower to reinforce the walls, and I'll explain why in a minute. But the tower became its symbol. The tower became its icon. It's, you know, there are certain cities that have certain icons on their what do you call it, the skyline. Like in New York City, it was the Twin Towers. Okay, in Seattle, it's the Space Needle. What's another one in some other city? Toronto has St. Louis has the Arch. So that's what this was. It was Migdal or Magdala, Tower Town. That's what they called it. Tower, the place of the tower. But it ends up being it ends up being the reason they were destroyed. So we'll find out why. Okay, Terakia is a Greek term that means salted fish. So in the Roman world, they spoke Greek, and Magdala was an old Hebrew derivative of Migdal. So Magdala became Terakia, which means the great salted fish. So Magdala became the tower of the salted fish. All right, it was 6 miles from Capernaum. It was the home of Mary Magdalene, we mentioned. And this guy here, who is Josephus? He was a great historian. He wrote extensively about Magdala. And like I said, up until 2009, nobody knew where it was. Okay, he told all kinds of stories about it, but nobody knew exactly where it was until it was discovered in 2009. Okay, population about 3,000 to 5,000. Some people have said it was even more than that, but that's a conservative estimate. A very large city compared to Capernaum, Bethsaida, or Chorazin. Massive fish processing structures. We talked about that. The synagogue there, it was a small synagogue compared to the synagogue at Capernaum. Okay, the synagogue at Capernaum, we talked a lot about it. It was massive. It was huge. People came from all around, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, all the elders. They loved that synagogue. Well, there was another synagogue at Magdala, but it wasn't near as special. It wasn't near as large. It was smaller, but it had these ornate mosaics, which indicates high value or wealth. Okay, famous for Magdala stone. There's a stone there. I'm going to show you a stone. It's actually it's called a oh man, I forgot the name of it, but it's called the Magdala stone. But it's a carving that supposedly shows the interior of the temple. Okay, but the carvings are on the outside of the stone, so it's kind of like a negative relief. You'll see it. You'll see it in just a minute. It was a stronghold for a 66 AD rebellion. So this is kind of the history of Magdala. After when they began to do the excavations there, you know what they do is they date everything by the pottery and the coins that are there. Okay, they found no coins and no pottery after 67 A.D. That date back to 60 date later than 67 AD. What that means is when Rome destroyed it, they completely destroyed it. Okay, it was destroyed by Rome in the 67 rebellion. So what happened was in 66 AD, Remember, this is before the book of Revelation was written, which was written in 90 AD. Um, the Jews rebelled against the Roman Empire. They said, we're tired of the oppression, we're tired of the persecution, and they rebelled against the Roman Empire. And Rome said, okay, we're going to squash this rebellion, which was one of the things that the Romans did. They squashed the rebellion. So, in that process, they destroyed many of the cities of, of Israel. Magdala was one of them. And then in 70 AD, just a few years later, they destroyed what? Jerusalem and the temple. Right. Now that's when Israel got dispersed. The second time, that's when they dispersed out throughout called the diaspora. They didn't come back until when? 1948. Right, 1948 they came back. So now Israel's a nation again. This is this time when they were being destroyed because of their rebellion. So keep that in mind. Okay, here we go. Tower Town, button upside down. Here we go. Moving on. Okay, here's some pictures of it. This is the highway. This would have been, compared to the Via Maris right there. This goes down to Tiberias. This is a picture of the inside the synagogue. We'll see a couple pictures like that. This is the entire ruins. All right, right here. There's another picture of it from overhead, looking back towards the mountains. There is this highway that runs through here. If you go back up this way, that goes up to Cana. Cana. All right. So there was only one way you could get from the Sea of Galilee to Cana and then back down here to Nazareth, and that was through this valley called the Valley of Doves. Okay, this valley is called the Valley of Doves. This mountain right here is called something, I can't remember what. But anyway, we'll talk about that mountain later. That was where there were these strongholds built up in the hills, kind of like Masada. They actually protected themselves up there. You remember what the name of it is? You were there too, right? I had it this morning. I was even talking about it. I forgot it. So, okay. Anyway, there's that valley that goes there. There's Migdal. So it all started with this hotel. There you go. There's a hotel. You can't stay there. Only Catholic priests can stay there because it's built by the Catholics. It's called the guest house. So the Catholics wanted to build a hotel right there. Well, in Israel, this is in 2008, 2009, they wanted to build a hotel. Well, in Israel, you have to have a archaeological team come in and check the place before you build anything to make sure there's not anything important in the ground. They dug down a little bit and they found Magdala. And so there's been massive excavations since then, funded by the Catholic Church. Okay, that's a Catholic, almost like a Catholic rectory, really. Here's the ruins. There's the synagogue. They built a cover over the synagogue. There's the ruins. Now, Magdala was called the City of Fish, or the Tower of Fish. It had this massive fish market. These are like booths in the fish market. These little pools right here are little pools where they would keep the fish. And there were, I'll show you another picture where they have literally a trough that runs around throughout this entire area that brings fresh water to all those little ponds. And they would take the fish. It was a big fish market. They would put the fish in there, the living ones, let them live in there for a while so they stay a lot longer. And you could come to the market, pick out your fish, and take it home with you. Okay. Or if they didn't sell them, they would take them to the salt packing plant down by the water. They had massive rock places where they would salt the fish and dry the fish, and you would sell it to the salting facility. Okay. There's another picture of it. There's the Sea of Galilee. You can see some of the docks. You can't see it right here, but there's some of the docks there. I'll show you a picture of that. There's some more of the ruins there. Okay, this is one of the docks that they excavated. See these round hooks right here. You pull your boat up here. You're in MS7. You're in MS6. You're in MS5. You know, what slip are you in? I'm in MS5. All right, let's get all the fish off of MS6. You know, and so that's where they would park. Here's a picture of what they think it might have looked like. This is interesting. Here's the trough. Remember the water trough? This is spring fed. This is fascinating because it wasn't water from the Sea of Galilee. It was water from these 4 springs that they had there. This is a mikvah. You know what a mikvah is? A mikvah is a Jewish ritual bath. They would go down in it. They would soak. They would turn around and come back. It was wide enough to where you would go down in it, do a ritual bath, come over here, and walk back up the other side, making sure not to touch anybody else coming down in it, because if you touched them, you were impure. Okay, your ritual bath didn't take. You got to go get bathed again. Go take another bath, son. Okay, so that was. Now this is interesting because that's a Jewish thing. You don't see that anywhere else except in Jewish towns. Okay, duck in altum means launch out into the deep. That's the Catholic Church they built there. They build these nasty, massive monstrosities that just destroys everything. But this one's actually pretty nice. Inside, they have this massive rotunda where they have these pillars. Each one of these pillars has a name on it. I think this one is Salome, for all the prominent women of the Bible. One of them is Mary Magdalene. She's honored in that church. There's some more of the ruins there. There's one of our guides that was telling us all the stories there. Very cool. And inside this church, this is the inside of the church. This is the pulpit. The pulpit is a boat. Okay, a replica of a boat that supposedly that's what Jesus floated in. I don't think it looked exactly like that, but it could be. Here's the synagogue. See this? These are all mosaic floors, very expensive, very detailed. It's all crumpled up and wrinkled up because they had a massive earthquake there way after it was destroyed, but it damaged a lot. And this is the Magdalene stone, or the Magdala stone right there. It's very important. This is not the actual stone. The actual stone is in the Museum of Israel, but they made a replica, and they're very good at making their replicas of those things. Another picture of the synagogue. Another picture of the synagogue. There's another picture of the synagogue. Okay, and here's the stone. There's 5 sides that are carved. This side is carved. It shows the pillars of the temple. It shows some of the vessels that would have been there. And it shows this right here. This is called the menorah. This one is unique. It's unique because it's got a tripod base. Nobody's ever seen that before. They didn't know that the menorah inside the temple, the candlestick, had a tripod base. Why is that significant to us?
Trinity.
The Trinity. It represents the Trinity. Okay, let's see. And then let me get next here. This is the top of it. It has these petals and this flower, 6 petals there, and then 6 petals on the outside. They say it represents the 12 tribes of Israel. These hearts are supposedly representative of the table of showbread, which is unique. The archaeologists, when they found this, it was an amazing discovery because they had never found any artifacts that actually depicted what was inside the temple. And then this stone right here is the one I want you to focus on, because this is a representative of wheels, which represent the chariot, more likely the chariot that, or the wheels that Ezekiel saw representing the throne of God, right? Wheel within a wheel. And then this down here is like a starburst. The Jews know exactly what this is. They said this is a representative of the Shekinah glory of God. That's pretty amazing. All right. So let's learn some things about Tower Town and about towers in the Bible. Okay, so you know the most famous tower in the Bible is what?
Tower of Babel.
The Tower of Babel. What were they used for? A tower was used in military. They would use them for seeing. They could also use them. A tower would oftentimes be built outside the city wall, although it was connected to it. But it would be in a situation where if somebody were attacking the wall, they could use military strength and weapons to attack people who were climbing up the wall. And what the Romans would do, and what a lot of Israel's enemies would do, is they would build a siege tower. Okay, a siege tower was a tower with wheels like this. Okay, and they would build it, and then they would build a ramp. And let's say this is the wall here. They would build a ramp up to it. They would push the siege tower up to the top of it, and then that way they could fight over the wall and over the tower. So the tower could be used to repel advances. It was used for control. It was used for a refuge and a hiding place. It was used for watching in Isaiah chapter 5. I got to go back now because I missed that. Okay. Okay. It was used as a symbol of prestige, pride, self-reliance, power, and security. So take your Bible to Genesis chapter 11. Let's look at this tower and understand, in the Jewish mind, towers were not something that you would be proud of, and it's not something you would seek to do except for this protection as a military deal. Now, Hezekiah went through and rebuilt the towers around a lot of the walls and the walled cities in his day as a form of protection. And we're going to find out that because they got prideful and arrogant about their towers, God destroyed them. All right, Genesis chapter 11, the first time God deals with towers. Okay, here we go. Genesis chapter 11 and verse number 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. Where's the land of Shinar? The land of Shinar is the same as the land of the Chaldees, the land of Babylon. All right, here's Israel. The land of Shinar is over here. Babylon, Iraq, modern day Iraq. Let's see. And they had brick for stone and slime. Oh wait, okay. And they dwelt there. Verse 3. And they said one to another, "Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Towers, not a good idea, especially if you want to trust in them. They said, "Let us build a city, let us build a tower, and then let us make us a name." They wanted to get away from God, build themselves up higher than God. Man's always trying to do that. Man's always trying to say, "I'm a God, I'm a God, I'm a little God." No, you're not. Okay, God is God. You're not a God. Okay, there's some guy out there actually calls himself God. What's his name? Charlemagne the God. Okay, that dude, I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. Okay, let me just put it that way. Okay, no, we're not gods, and we do build things to try to protect ourselves from God. What are some towers that man builds? The tower of pride, the tower of false security, the tower of self-sufficiency, the tower of control, the tower of rebellion. the Tower of Prosperity. Now turn to Isaiah chapter 30. Isaiah chapter 30. I've used this outline before, but it's so appropriate for this lesson. I wanted to use it again. So if you remember the lesson where I used this outline, then forget it. You can go ahead back to sleep and get your nap in. If you don't remember, this is all brand new, okay? Isaiah chapter 30. Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with the covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, that walk to go down into Egypt, and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. For his princes were at Zoan, and his ambassadors came to Hanes. They were all ashamed of a people that could not profit them, nor be in help nor profit, but a shame and also a reproach. The burden of the beasts of the south into the land of trouble and anguish, from whence come the young and old lion, the viper, and fiery flying serpent. They will carry their riches upon the shoulders of young asses, and their treasures upon the bunches of camels, to a people that shall not profit them. For the Egyptians shall help in vain, and to no purpose. Therefore have I cried concerning this, their strength is to sit still. Now jump over to verse 24. The oxen likewise and the young asses that ear the ground shall eat clean provender, which hath been winnowed with the shovel and with the fan, and there shall be upon every high mountain and upon every high hill rivers and streams of waters in the day of the great slaughter, when the towers fall. That is powerful. This is during the time when the Assyrians had taken Israel, the northern kingdom, captive. The southern kingdom kept struggling back and forth. Hezekiah was a good king. Then there was a bad king. Then there was a good king. And Hezekiah rebuilt, fortified the cities, and built the towers. And then instead of trusting God against the Assyrians, they said, hey, I got a good idea. Let's go ask the Egyptians to help us. They're pretty strong. And God says, oh, no, 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 no. That's not going to help you. And he destroys the towers. What is wrong with trusting man's towers? Why man's towers fail? Number one, the wrong counsel. Blessed is a man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly. Look at verse 1. It says that, woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel. It took counsel, but not of me. They didn't ask of the Lord. There are many devices in man's heart. Nevertheless, the counsel of the Lord, that shall stand. A great story, Amnon and Jonadab in 2 Samuel is a good illustration of that. Number two, wrong concepts. Look at the part there. It says, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit. The cover there was to protect, was the cover of protection. We're going to cover us. It's like the ostrich. You know, when I was a kid, they used to teach that an ostrich, to get away from danger, would run and hide its head in a hole. I'm covered. I'm covered. I can't see. Now, these days, people say, well, that's not true. That's never happened. I don't know if it's true. When I was a kid, they taught that. The ostrich would go hide its head in a hole and thinking that he is protected from the enemy. Okay? Is he protected from the enemy? No, you're not protected from the enemy. That's the wrong concept. Sanctify them through thy truth. You got to believe in truth. Buy the truth and sell it not. They received not the truth that they might be saved. All right, number three, they had the wrong course. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. And they were trusting in the help from Egypt, not in the course of the Lord, what God had laid out for them. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Can I get amen right there? The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Wrong companions. They were hoping for, all these Egyptians to come help them. You don't trust in men or man. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Number 5, the wrong commander. They were trusting in Pharaoh, not in God. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of our Lord, the Lord our God. And then the last thing is this, the wrong comparison. Remember I said this is a picture of the Shekinah glory? It's an interesting story about these people in Magdala. They had built this synagogue, a tiny synagogue, made it elaborate with the ornate floors, and had this stone set up in the middle as sort of their focal point in the synagogue. They were looking at this as if, I'll give you an illustration. I'll close with this. Say not thou, what is the cause that the former days were better than these? They were looking at that and say, yeah, you remember back in the glory days when the Shekinah glory was in the temple? Now, the Shekinah glory hadn't been in the temple since the days of Solomon. They didn't know what they were talking about, okay? They had no idea. All they could talk about is, oh, the glory days, the glory days. Remember the glory day back when I was 12 and I was first team quarterback on the Pee Wee League. I was first team. Hey, I made the All Stars when I was 5 years old in the soccer team. Just want you all to know that. I was on the All Stars, 5 years old. The glory days. Remember the glory days. So now I went to college. The name of the college was the Norris Bible Baptist Institute. Now, if you don't know anything about Norris, it's named after J. Frank Norris. J. Frank Norris was arguably, some people consider him to be the father of the independent Baptist movement. He was one of the very first ones, if not the first one, to come out of the Southern Baptist Convention and say, oh, that's a bunch of junk. Y'all need to get out of there. He pastored the First Baptist Church of Fort Worth, Texas, which at that time was the largest church in the world. Okay, keep that in mind. J. Frank Norris, Steve Williams, Norris Bible Baptist Institute. I went there. Okay, one day, me and a guy were out soul winning, and in downtown Fort Worth, knocking on doors. You know how he's got these big houses. You know, the next door neighbor's like right there. Well, this one's big row house. You know, and you walk up, bang on the door. He had a little gate that went off to the side. Knocked on the door. Guy comes to the door. Old dude. I mean, probably 60. Really old. No, he was in his 80s and probably late 80s, early 90s. Real old guy, real sweet guy, real nice guy. So we're talking to him. Of course, back then you're aggressive. If you died today, would you go to heaven? If you died today, would you burn in hell? You know, we're trying to get him saved. And he said, in our conversation, he learned, or we had mentioned that we were students at the Norris Bible Baptist Institute. And his eyes lit up. He goes, I got to show you something. So he goes out the door. He comes out the door, goes through the gate into this lot. And it was a lot that was all grown over with foliage. I mean, this guy was a gardener extraordinaire. I mean, and it was dark. It was nighttime. And so we're going through this jungle. I mean, like, you know, I'm hearing all this stuff. I'm like in the middle of downtown Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm in a jungle, right? And he takes us back to the backside of his house, and he had this little den. He brought us in, and we're sitting there. He's got these big leather chairs, and we're talking to him. And he goes, I got to show y'all something. And he pulls out a picture of him and J. Frank Norris. I said, what in the world? He said, well, when I was younger, I was a private investigator, and I was on the payroll of J. Frank Norris. He paid me to find out all the dirt about the local community. And to understand what J. Frank Norris did there, you got to read his books. It's fantastic. It's amazing. But a lot of the dirt that he got on the people in the town was from this guy. His name was George Chambers. He was a private investigator. And I remember him looking at that picture like, you want to know about excitement? I'll tell you about excitement. This was excitement. And I thought, you know what? That's the perfect illustration for this. Here are these people. Y'all want to know about excitement? I'll tell you about excitement back in the old days when the Shekinah glory was in the temple. Oh, I'll tell you. Let me show you a couple pictures here. Look at this button. There we go. There it is. That's the First Baptist Church, Fort Worth, the glory days. There's the First Baptist Church. And by the way, he also pastored the Temple Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan at the same time. Second largest church in the world. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this: you can't live in the glory days of the old, of the past. Next week, we're going to talk about this lady. She was an escapee from the Tower Town. Here's her life verse: the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. Don't miss it next week. I got a present for you. So no, don't don't miss next week. You won't get the present. Okay. All right, let's pray. Father, thank you so much for your word, for your truth. Lord, for this lesson that stirred my soul.